In 1950, Senator Joe McCarthy leveled charges that communism had infiltrated the State Department. Senator Hoover announced that 50,000 card-carrying communists in the United States. The newsreels of 1950 show the country responding to the threat of communism on the front, as North Korean troops, backed by Russia, invaded South Korea, and U.S. soldiers went back to war. We'll see vintage footage of these stories and more, including an assassination attempt on President Truman, Jake LaMotta's big win, a greasy poll contest, and the news event of the year. And now, year by year, looks at 1950.
At Miami Beach, a 4-year-old dives into the sporting headlines. He's Bubba Tongay of St. Louis, and he has big plans for this summer. Sister Kathy, age 3, creates quite a splash herself by following Bubba off the board. So, there goes up 11 to show who's boss. What makes Tongay big news is the fact that he intends the English Channel. I'll repeat, English Channel. From Daddy and Sis, the talented tyke, who's already swum 22 miles down the Mississippi, goes for a stiff workout in the Atlantic Ocean. Beyond his years and with a well-coordinated stroke that's simply amazing for his age, young Bubba gets in shape for the greatest of all swimming feats. David and Goliath, and Bubba's got the channel. He's no landlubber, this Bubba. Jake LaMotta, the Bronx Bull, disguised as a leopard, ready for his bout with Tiberio Mitri, the tiger from Trieste. The middleweight bout at Madison Square Garden is attended by Mrs. LaMotta and Mrs. Mitri. Also at the fisticuffs are such celebrities as Governor Dewey and Eddie Egan, New York Boxing Commission chairman. Jake won the title from Marseille of France and is out to repeat. That's LaMotta in the dark trunks. It's definitely LaMotta's night. His jet-powered left pops Mitri's eyes and continually keep the challenger off balance. So far, Mitri is unbeaten to scratch. Jake is out for number 78 out of 94. In the 13th and 14th, Mitri staged a rally that came too late, and he was a badly beaten tiger. Another for LaMotta. He really earned the title again tonight. Mitri never had it. It's a sweet victory for Jake. He was the fan favorite, but LaMotta had it. The tiger from Trieste. The tiger is claws at home. In Washington, former President Herbert Hoover became the Boys Clubs of America Golden Keystone on FBI Director Edgar Hoover for outstanding service to the nation's youth. Mr. Hoover accepts with these cogent and timely remarks.
We who are engaged in law enforcement see the results daily in government activities of teenage boys and girls who are responsible for a percentage of crime out of all proportion to their age group. This is indeed a serious indictment of parenthood.
Buddy Toomey of Washington, D.C. is a fellow who lives dangerously and likes it. Here's Buddy's latest wrinkle in high-caliber thrills. Shooting out of a cannon for a jump of 65 feet at the Trenton Fairgrounds. The stunt won the Atlantic City Steel Pier Award, but it doesn't always work. Clovers and Irish luck smile on Buddy, a daredevil who's created quite a bang with his Big Bertha leap. Yes, sir, Buddy's got the range on. Big boys, our B-29s go outers. This is a refuel test just beneath the Pentagon. Preview of the operation projected by the Air Force for action such as that encountered on the Korean front. The thermic fuel boom delivers high octane. This makes it possible for aircraft to refuel in flight rapidly and at high altitudes than was possible with the former hose reel method. The Boeing company designed this revolutionary method of gassing up. The boom's pilot is officially known as Clancy because he's the guy who is the boom. The liner Queen Mary brings a pair of kings to bring Lou Abbott and Bud Costello, stars of the Universal International movie In the Foreign Legion, imitation of hell.
Hey, Roy.
Nice to be here, isn't it?
Oh, wonderful. I don't smoke while you're on board.
Isn't it nice to be back here, France?
France?
Yeah.
Stop.
What is it?
England, good old England.
Oh, London.
Oh, yeah, that's while you're on board. I told you about it.
Who's smoking? Who's smoking?
You are.
What do you guys smoking?
You've got a cigar in your mouth.
Tom, but I ain't walking.
Now, look, where's the bow of the boat?
That's over,
In the stern of the boat.
that's over there.
And the port?
That's in the icebox.
Oh,
Lou and Bud are on hand for a tour which will delight their many admirers among the moviegoers of England. Their tour is definitely international. Campus capers at your college. Embattled sauce take a stand at the foot of a greased pole. Atop is a dummy wearing a freshman cap. The flush, considering this an insult, are asking to remove the offending beanie. Sauce are to defend it. And so the annual collegiate battle, the freshman-sophomore is joined. It's a wingding affair with no holds barred. The curricular duck, where higher education stands, and an undergrad in mayhem for a day. Flush tries and he flunks out. I mean down. The cap and gown set are glad they wore old clothes, for anything goes right now. Pants in. But the victorious. The offending beanie is removed. They get no diplomas for this, but for some, a sheepskin sure would help.
In 1850, Americans were introduced to Xerox machines, the Dynasonic, and Minute Rice. Year by year returns the event of 1950, the outbreak of the Korean War. 50, North Korean forces poured over the 38th parallel into South Korea. By June 27th, President Truman ordered the deployment of U.S. troops. On the 30th, he ordered a naval blockade. And by December, President Truman had declared a national state of emergency.
The tremendous weight of America's unbeatable Air Force gets set for the drive on North Korean troops and positions. B-29s at March Field in California prepare for that first long jump. General Emmett O'Donnell, commander of the 15th Air Force, sees the grim preparation of these bombers that means strictly business. They're off for the confused fighting in Korea, a fight we never wanted, but which has been forced on us by Russian greed in Asia. United States bombers in swiftly growing numbers wing their way to the trouble zone. Thousands of miles of Pacific air lanes stretch between takeoff and target, but soon the bombs will drop. The Asiatic spearhead of Korea off the China mainland is the objective of U.S. troops, planes, and equipment designed to halt the communist-inspired drive of the North Koreans. Yank gun crews ready for action, determined to repel the invaders driving south of the 38th parallel. American planes are casualties of war as the Yank thrust seeks to establish a strong position. Wounded pilots are evacuated as the going gets tough. Bone-weary crews, nearly dead for sleep after the grind of battle, take time out to regain strength for the return to combat. Wounded get an airlift to Japan for treatment. An ever-increasing flow of fighting power and supplies heads for the battle zone. The United States means business, and with the United Nations support, is out for victory in the cause of peace. The American-trained Korean Army holds on until the Yanks arrive. At Camp Pendleton, California, rank upon rank of battle equipment awaits the long haul across the Pacific. Commanding officers watch a review and salute the flag with stern purpose as the 1st Marine Division is alerted for the Korean battle. The President has said we are not at war, but the United States, champion of democracy, sponsor of world peace, and defender of the oppressed, has been pushed around to the limit. From here on out, America will take steps. B-29 Super Force, now classed as medium bombers, take up where they left off after the conquest of Japan. Today the target is Korea. Crews and ships, less than 8 days after being alerted in the United States, are ready for takeoff from their island bases to blast communications of the invading North Koreans. Flying under the banner of the United Nations, with the moral backing of 52 nations, they seek out rail yards, supply lines. For these air veterans, there is once again the familiar cry of, bombs away! On the home front, a very serious President Truman tells the nation that the issue has been joined and that communist aggression must be stopped.
The fact that communist forces have invaded Korea is a warning that there may be similar acts of aggression in other parts of the world. Free nations must be on their guard more than ever before against this kind of sneak attack. The free nations have now made it clear that lawless aggression will be met with force. The free nations have learned the fateful lesson of the 1930s. That lesson is that aggression must be met firmly. Appeasement leads only to further aggression and ultimately to war.
The President asked for partial wartime powers. He also asked for an increase of $10 billion in defense appropriations with a possible tax rise. This he explains by saying,
we know that the cost of freedom is high, but we are determined to preserve our freedom no matter what the cost.
20,000 fans jammed the Sports Palace in Paris for a 10-round non-title bout between France's Gene Stock and Sugar Ray Robinson of New York. A body blow hurts the Frenchman, but he holds on gamely against the welterweight champ who's making his European debut. Clubbed to the canvas by a sharp left jab. But he comes back for more, and if there's any doubt about the outcome, it's not shared by the fight fans. Sugar Ray's punishing blows to the body floor the Frenchman a second time. Dazed and dumbfounded by the fury of his adversary's attack, Stock still manages to get a grip on himself and get up at the count of 7. He's down the third time at 2 minutes of the second round. Again, the referee starts his count, and again the plucky Frenchman manages to stagger to his feet. But then his manager throws in the towel. His man has had enough. And for Sugar Ray Robinson, his Continental debut is a huge and speedy success. Park, Chicago, scene of the first All-Star Classic, finds Casey Stengel, Commissioner Chandler, and Bert Schotten flying for this year's Dream Game. Big names in big leagues. Musial of the Cards and Kellel of Detroit. The brothers DiMaggio, Joe of New York, and Dom of Boston. And baseball's grand old man, Connie Mack of the Athletics, who managed the American League team in the All-Star inaugural, does the honors, and the 17th edition of this great mid-season classic goes to press. Now for the highlights. In the second inning, with Vic Raschi of the Yanks pitching for the junior circuit, and with one on for the National Leaguers, Enos Slaughter of the Cards takes aim. Slaughter slams a long one to deep left center, and ahead of him around the base path races Jackie Robinson of the Dodgers. As Robinson comes home to score, Slaughter slides safely into third with a triple, the game's first RBI. Hank Sauer of the Cubs steps in. It's a long fly ball to right for Sauer. After the catch, Slaughter scampers home, making it 2-0 for the senior meet. 46,000 fans see plenty of action in the fifth. Ted Williams up, 2 outs. The score tied up 2-all. And Ted hits Don Newcomb for a drive into short right that scores Larry Doby and puts the American League All-Stars out front. Ralph Kiner leads off the ninth. Harleman of Detroit pitching. Harleman can kiss that one goodbye. It's into the left field bleachers, and the Pirates home run slugger Ralph Kiner has hit the first homer of the 1950 All-Star game. And now it's a tied-up ball game at 3-all. A mighty important loss for Big Ralph and for the National Leaguers, who haven't won an All-Star game since 1944. It goes into extra innings, scoreless innings, until the 14th, when pitcher Ted Gray of Detroit gets tagged by Red Shane Dinks to the Cardinals. Another home run for the underdog National Leaguers. And this one by Shane Dinks puts them out in front. And that's how it ended. The favorite American League All-Stars failed to score in their half of the 14th, and the senior circuit wins 4-3 for its 5th victory in 17 starts. Home, sweet home run. America musters her forces as the Korean crisis daily becomes more grave. Enlistment machinery begins to click as the United States is made the spearhead of the United Nations police force against Northern Korean invaders. Particular emphasis is placed on the Marine Corps, long the troubleshooting outfit on foreign soil. While badly outnumbered, Americans and their allies fight a desperate rearguard action on the Asiatic continent. Marine reinforcements are rushed to the scene from West Coast ports of embarkation. The Leathernecks typify the nation's mood of mobilization since the Red sneak attack on southern Korea. They leave to join the first officially approved United Nations police force to stem the Korean communists who are driving Americans and southern Koreans into retreat along a wide front. Facing overwhelming numerical and armored strength of a red-trained army, the Allies retreat southward to regroup and set up a new defense line. GIs dig in along the Kum River in a desperate rearguard action. Artillery rushed in by air goes into action. Against heavily armored columns, the Allies fight desperately to maintain the ever-increasing supply lines coming to the front. But the battle is not always successful. One ammunition train is bombed and completely demolished. A grievous blow to the cause of invaded and ravished southern Korea. But the United Nations forces begin to tighten their defense, and American tanks begin to make their appearance. Although outgunned and outnumbered, they play a large part in slowing the Red advance. The tragic cost of maintaining the peace. Here are the first Americans who paid with their lives, and some of these were taken prisoners, bound, and shot to death by their captors. Already America has suffered 500 casualties, and 40 have paid with their lives. 5 short years after a global war, Americans again pay in blood the price of peace. Leader among the free nations of the earth, her sons once more make the supreme sacrifice. Under the banner of the United Nations, Americans lead the way in the fight against tyranny and slavery throughout the world.
Still to come on Year by Year, MacArthur goes to Korea, and the front page news of 1950. Of 1950, General MacArthur is appointed commander of Allied forces in Korea. Alger Hiss is found guilty of perjury. Senator Joseph McCarthy charges that the State Department has been infiltrated by communists.
United Nations forces make a lightning thrust on the west coast port of Incheon. As the invasion fleet nears land, there is feverish activity in the amphibious force. For them, it is D-Day, -1, and landing operations will soon begin. In one of the most brilliant strategic moves of the Korean conflict, elements of the 77th Task Force set the stage for invasion. An end run behind the North Korean lines. Destroyers open up. Rockets take it from there. Walmy Island, guarding the harbor, softened up, Marines swarmed into landing craft for the attack. Under cover of a continuous barrage of rocket fire, the whole harbor of Incheon is brought under control. But the real test lies ahead. As the landing craft head for the beach, they face an unknown strength in the Incheon garrison. Once again, the Marines are sticking their leather necks out. With the 7th Infantry Division and South Korean allies, 40,000 men are involved in the operation. The largest single United Nations undertaking since the outbreak of hostilities. Weeks of preparation and practice have gone into the thrust that catches Red Koreans completely by surprise. Incheon is softened up as the Marines hit the beach, and they land almost at will on the island of Walmy. From here, they must cross the causeway leading into the city of Incheon itself. With the landing successfully accomplished, and with the Navy in command of the coast, the next stop is Seoul, Korea's ancient capital. General MacArthur pays a surprise visit to the Incheon front to observe personally the brilliant achievement. The United Nations Commander-in-Chief gets a first-hand look at the results of planning. But with North Korean forces racing from the south and another column from the Manchurian border, UN forces lose no time in their drive on Seoul. Tanks blast their way through opposition. Here's a close one for GI and cameraman. This is the road to Seoul and the beginning of victory. Backing General MacArthur's charge that Russia is aiding the North Koreans, United States Delegate Warren Austin produces a captured Soviet-made machine gun for examination by members of the Security Council. Soviet Delegate Malik remains stony-faced as it is passed around. But when it comes his turn to examine the weapon, the former president of the council declines, possibly because he knows what one looks like, and takes one of his frequent walks. But his exit does not stop inspection of the gun. And after his departure, it is passed over his empty chair and goes on to the Indian delegate. It is in an atmosphere of tension that the 277th plenary session of the United Nations meets. A new alternate United States delegate, Mrs. Edith Sampson, is joined by Secretary of State Atchison and Warren Austin. Foreign Minister Andrei Vyshinsky reads some American headlines that may give him food for thought. For it is on the question of whether United Nations forces will continue across the 30th parallel that much of the debate will center. Never has the Assembly met with more fateful issues to resolve. The seating of Communist China, the overriding of the Soviet veto to censure North Korea are on the ominous agenda. Secretary Atchison makes another and eloquent plea for peace throughout the world.
Peace the world wants must be free from fear. The fear of invasion, the fear of subversion, the fear of the knock on the door at midnight.
Thrills are where you find them, and our roving cameraman found them everywhere. Ever in search of action and excitement, he set up shop at the rodeo and found that there's still a lot of wild in the Wild West and a lot of bounce in a bull. In Spain, the top sporting thrill was still the bullfight, and the matador who makes a misstep is still lucky to live for another crack at El Toro. For matador and picador, the bull, he is one awful bore. Upsetting, a treacherous, steep-banked, icy run. Trouble strikes with lightning speed for those who risk their necks in this winter sport. A mixture that spells danger every time. Motorcycling on a sand track. These mechanical bronco riders tried it and got thrown for a loss. Every turn is a nightmare. Every rider a candidate for first aid. A Donnybrook on wheels. For a freewheeling spectacle of speed and spills, the 6-day bike race rated high with the spectators. the excitement with a bang. A pretty lake, a pretty girl, and water skiing. But pretty is as pretty does, and is pretty rough on the seagoing slatman who flies through the air only to come in for a crash landing. Water is as hard as concrete when you hit it wrong. Water skiing, snow skiing. There's a ski thrill for every climb and every time. One of Jack Frost's most eye-filling thrills is the ski jump. Here's a symphony of skis in slow motion. There are some who make it and some who don't. For them, it's rough. Ski jumping is a school of hard knocks, and every slope is paved with broken bones and broken dreams. Hey, wait for me! Slalom is skiing with a swing and a sway, a picturesque test of a ski bird's adroitness and skill in navigating the closely spaced markers. But for downright all-out speed, the downhill race on a scenic mountain slope is one of the winter's most breathtaking spectacles. There's many a slip twixt start and finish, many a zip splat on a snow-covered hill, but still they come all out for sport. Yes, 1950 was a big year in sports, opening up new and bigger vistas for tomorrow.
Still to come on Year by Year, the stars come out for a 6-foot rabbit named Harvey and the most popular films of 1950. Holden, born yesterday with Judy Holliday, and All About Eve, starring Betty Davis.
Circle Theater in Hollywood welcomes a 6-foot, 3 1/2-inch rabbit to its hospitable portals. Movie fans turn out in droves to see the premiere of Harvey and admire Yvonne DiCarlo and other celebrities, including Howard Duff and Piper Laurie. Universal International's sparkling feature picture starring Jimmy Stewart brings out one of the biggest audiences in the film capital's history. Peggy Dow of the cast makes a personal appearance, as does another top movie star, Donald O'Connor, who gets a big hand.
I don't know whether I should be here or not. Francis said Harvey was cutting in on his territory, you know. But,
he's coming up right behind you, I have a feeling.
is it back of us now?
I have a feeling that he...
Anthony Curtis, the shining light in the film constellation, attends the opening, and of course it would not be complete without Mary Chase, author of the wonderful comedy. Luella Parsons, confidant of the motion picture colony, arrives with Scott Brady. Hedda Hopper tells you all about it, and Harvey is all ears.
This is the second time I've seen this picture. I adore it. I think you will, too. And I think Jimmy Stewart will probably get a second Oscar for his performance in Harvey. Thank you so much. And if you're seeing rabbits, I am, too.
Here's hoping we'll all see Harvey.
Yankee Stadium, home of baseball's immortal Babe Ruth, is the scene of the third and fourth games of the 1950 World Series, with the Yanks leading the Philadelphia Phillies 2-0. Highlights of game number 3. 7th inning, Ed Lopat going for New York, scored tied 1-1. Mike Goliath lines it to center, sending Hamner home from second with the run that puts the Whiz Kids ahead for the first time in the series. But then comes the 8th, and Ken Heinzelman, the Phil's starting pitcher, walks into trouble. Coleman and Berra have been given free passes, and now Heinzelman walks the jolter, Joe DiMaggio, to load him up. So Eddie Sawyer calls for Jim Constanti, his ace relief hurler, who started the first game for Philadelphia. Enter Constanti, exit Heinzelman, and the stage is set for Bobby Brown and a bad break for the Phils. Brown's grounder is bobbled, and Coleman races across to tie up the game 2 runs apiece. 9th inning, Constanti trying to put out the fire. Woodling in scoring position at second. Jerry Coleman comes through again. Woodling comes home, and the Yankees are 1 game away from winning the series. The champs are ahead. behind in the fourth game, with Yogi Berra facing Constanti. Yes, Constanti again, and the Yanks' great catcher belts one into the right field seat. The second home run of the 1950 series. Both Yankee and Yogi's puts the American Leaguers out front, 3-0. For Bobby Brown, it's hit number 4 for the Classic, a series clutch hitter for the Yanks, and this sixth-inning walk confuses the Clipper. DiMaggio backtracks, thinking the ball may be caught, but it isn't, and Joe makes for home, and Brown goes in with a triple. Hank Barr lifts a long fly to left, sending Sizzler deep to haul it in. Plenty of time for Brown to tag along home to make it 4-0 for the Bronx Bombers. Rookie Whitey Ford has one out to go when Semenuk lofts one deep to left, but the ball gets away from Woodling, and 2 Whiz Kids whiz across the plate. From 5-0, it's 5-2. The Bills have the tying run at the plate. That's all for young Mr. Ford. Casey Stengel is forced to play his ace, Ali Reynolds, to face pinch hitter Lopata. And that's all for the Whiz Kids. Reynolds gets his man out swinging, and it's all over. The Yanks have won in a sweep, the 6th time they've done it, and their 13th World Series victory.
Tiny Wake Island, a pinpoint in the vast Pacific, again makes history. Here it was that a handful of Marines stood off Jap attacks for days, and here it is that President Truman, after an 8,000-mile flight, has his first meeting with General MacArthur, whom he has come to consult on the progress of the Korean War and the general Far Eastern situation. In a simple radio shack, momentous decisions are reached in strict privacy. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Omar Bradley, is also among the President's advisors. Before they part at the airfield to resume their individual tasks, President Truman reads a richly merited citation and pins the 4th oak leaf cluster on a soldier who already wears almost every decoration a grateful nation can offer. It is the reward for his direction of the hard-pressed United Nations and U.S. forces. While momentous decisions are reached on Wake Island, the mighty battleship Missouri, her 16-inch guns rising to firing position, carries out her United Nations mission along the Korean coast. Defense Department pictures show the precision with which the giant battle wagon hurls its 1-ton projectiles onto a pinpointed target. The powder bag goes in the breech of the gun, and the big boys are unlimbered and ready for action to soften up enemy strong points. These are the monsters that have spearheaded amphibious landings, which have led to successful encircling movements. In seconds, they will pour a hail of steel onto enemy installations. The target is zeroed, and they let loose. Shore batteries reply and score a near miss. The Big Mo scores a knockout.
Snorty, the sea lion, puts his seal of approval on mermaids at the Aquarena in San Marcos, Texas. Then proceeds to give them all the deep 6. It's Snorty's way of saying, oh, oh, oh. Let's go swimming. Because next to eating fish, swimming is his favorite occupation, and Snorty is good at it. Why, throw a saddle over him and he'll take you for a ride. The Aquarena provides a novel glimpse of life under the briny. Spectators sit in a kind of submarine theater that is lowered under the surface. And down here, you see the sea lions in their element. It's a 3-ring circus when Snorty goes into his act. Whoops-a-daisy. Yes, it was a big year in sports. Never were so many spectators thrilled and chilled by so much sporting excitement dished up red-hot by so many top-notch teams and equal stars. Boxing had its share of fans, its share of fists and action-packed climaxes. For some trail led to fame, and for others it was a rocky road to peace. News of the year was the immediate rise to the heavyweight title of Desert Chuck, who climbed to the top over the faltering Lewis. They're off high that brought cheers to racing fans and brought new names to the winner's circle in the sport of kings. And one of the brightest names of 1950 was Hill Prince, Christopher Chenery's fleet 3-year-old. First in the Preakness, second in the Derby, winner of the Wood Memorial and the Wither Smile, Hill Prince was named Horse of the Year. There were thrills, too, at Aintree, where England's big race of the year, the Grand National Steeplechase, had more than its usual quota of spine-tingling, bone-bruising spills. Many started, few finished this grueling test of man and mount. Victory was in the balance till the very last jump. A grid season that saw Notre Dame beaten 4 times and Navy sink the Army saw the Oklahoma Sooners extend their unbeaten streak to 31 and wind up number 1 on football's hit parade. Led from the tee and to a tee by quarterback Claude Arnold, the Sooners went through the season unbeaten and untied. They made touchdown a synonym for thrills, and the fans hollered for more. The Sooners had Arnold and halfback Billy Bessels and fullback Leon Heath and Jim Weatherall, everybody's choice for All-American in the line, and blocking, wow, as they rolled on to national acclaim. In a year of football ups and downs, Oklahoma was up at the top. At the White House in Washington, top defense officials of the nation gathered to discuss the gravest world crisis since Poland and Pearl Harbor. The flagrant aggression of Chinese communist troops in Korea arouses the country's ire. With the North Korean bandits well under control and with the promise that UN troops would be withdrawn, the unexpected entry of 300,000 Red Chinese across the Manchurian border may well precipitate World War III. President Truman voices his accusation of red imperialism.
The forces of the United Nations are in Korea to put down an aggression that threatens not only the whole fabric of the United Nations, but all human hopes of peace and justice. If the United Nations yields to the forces of aggression, no nation will be safe or secure. If aggression is successful in Korea, we can expect it to spread throughout Asia and Europe and to this hemisphere. We are fighting in Korea for our own national security and survival. We have committed ourselves to the cause of a just and peaceful world order through the United Nations. We stand by that commitment.
On the battlefront in Korea, United Nations forces fight desperately to meet the Red attack. Here our troops must face what General MacArthur has termed a new war. Outnumbered more than 2 to 1 by Chinese and North Koreans, the UN forces hope to regroup and to meet the overwhelming attack which has broken their fluid lines of defense across northern Korea. The president has stated that the use of the atomic bomb is being considered to halt the communist onrush inspired by Russia. His hope is that the employment of this devastating weapon will be unnecessary. But the final hope lies with the United Nations. At a momentous meeting at Lake Success, the Red Chinese delegation from Peking hear themselves charged with every crime on the calendar of aggression by Ben C. Lim, representative of the Republic of Korea. While Mr. Lim talks, the delegation, whose hordes are threatening world peace, refuse to take their seats and face their accusers.
I point my finger at these representatives of the Chinese Communist regime, and I ask, why do they come here with unclean hands? I ask again, why does this group come here with hands that drip with the blood of the United Nations troops, the blood of the Korean people?
Blocking a United Nations motion to order communist Chinese armies to leave Korea, the Russians used 3 vetoes. On each of the votes, Russia's Jacob Malik was the only dissenting voice. The United States, represented by Chief Delegate Warren Austin, took up the debate and further accused the Chinese Reds of aggression in Korea.
It is no exaggeration to say
that problem is the greatest one now confronting the world. That problem is this. Will there be peace or war in the Far East? The world awaits anxiously the answer to this question.
Still to come on Year by Year, the attempted assassination of President Truman by terrorists and what things cost in 1950. 60 cents a pound. Eggs cost 60 cents a dozen, and a pound of butter sold for 73 cents.
An armed attack on the governor's palace in Puerto Rico is destined to have repercussions in the United States. A nationalist group riddles the UN flag in an attempt on the life of Governor Minos Marin. Roving bands of rebels prowl the island. Before the shooting is over, more than 40 are dead, including insurrectionists, police, and National Guardsmen called out to quell the uprising. Out of a minority group of 400, 6 conspirators to the palace to be met by a hail of bullets. Those not mowed down were captured. The frantic faction demands complete independence of Puerto Rico and adopts violent methods. The ringleader pays for the attack with his life. The campaign of terror washes onto American shores, where 2 partisans attempt to shoot their way into Blair House to assassinate President Truman. In a flaming gun battle during which 20 shots were fired, Oscar Collazo lies desperately wounded at the steps of the presidential residence. One of the would-be assassins pays with his life. He is Griselio Torres, who fell before the guns of Blair House guards. A missing picket gives evidence of a bullet's path. The president was warned away from a window during the height of the duel when the terrorists hit the guards with blazing guns. Leslie Caulfield lies mortally wounded.